Hello Year 12s and welcome to this video on operations systems and operations management. There are 4 things that you need to do while you're watching this video. The first thing is to take the very best Cornell notes that you can. The second thing is to use the pause and rewind functions. Use the pause function if you need to stop this video to take notes. Use the rewind function if you need to go back over any information contained in this video. The third thing that you need to do is to have your vocabulary sheets open in front of you so that you can include in your vocabulary sheets the definitions of key terms or of any other words that you may be unfamiliar with. And the fourth thing that you need to do is to have your summary books open in front of you. As we go through this video, I will give you some guidance as to what to include in your summary books. Once you've finished watching and taking notes on this video, please read the chapter of the textbook referred to on this slide. If you find any additional information from that reading that you think is useful, then supplement your Cornell notes with that additional information. This video is divided into 3 short parts. Part 1 deals with operations systems. Part 2 deals with the relationship between operations management and business objectives. And Part 3 deals with the characteristics of operations management within manufacturing businesses and within service businesses. Let's start off then with the learning intention for the first part of this video. This learning intention requires you to be able to describe the key elements of an operations system, namely inputs, processes, which I will refer to as transformation, and outputs. Write this learning intention down in your Cornell notes. An operations system is the procedures and processes undertaken to transform inputs into outputs. Look down the left-hand side of your vocabulary sheets, find the term operations system and write this definition in there. Once you've done that, highlight the words in red, bold, italicized type, and if you're ever required to define an operations system, make sure that you include the highlighted words in your definition. As you can see from this definition, there are 3 stages of an operations system. These are first, inputs, second, transformation, also referred to as processes, and third, outputs. Inputs, sometimes called factors of production, are the resources that are used in the process of production. Find the term inputs in your vocabulary sheets and write this definition in there. I've included some examples of inputs, and we'll look at these in a little bit more detail later on. Transformation is the processes that are involved in converting inputs into outputs. Find the term transformation in your vocabulary sheets and write this definition in there. Transformation is the stage where value is added to inputs and productivity gains can be made. Many businesses in the same industry will have similar inputs and similar outputs. However, what makes some businesses more successful than others is the extent to which they're able to more efficiently transform their inputs into outputs and to add value by producing high-quality outputs. That's why many of the operations management strategies that we'll be looking at focus on improving the productivity, efficiency and effectiveness of transformation. Outputs are the goods and services created by the transformation of inputs. Find the term outputs in your vocabulary sheets and write this definition in there. Goods are things that are manufactured for sale. We say that goods are tangible because they are physical things that can be touched. An example of a good is a car. A manufacturing business produces, that is, manufactures goods for sale to customers. On the other hand, services refers to work that is performed for others. We say that services are intangible because they are invisible and cannot be touched. An example of a service is being given a haircut. A service business performs, that is, provides services and charges customers a fee for those services. I have included, at the end of your vocabulary sheets, some space for you to write the definitions of tangible and intangible in your vocabulary sheets, should you need to do so. I suggest that you include this diagram in your summary books. It's a fundamental diagram in that this underlies many of the concepts that we'll be dealing with later on in this outcome. As I've said, inputs are the resources that are used in the process of production. On this slide, I've set out 8 categories of inputs. These are raw materials, component parts, utilities, labour or human resources, capital resources, which include technology, information and knowledge, entrepreneurial resources, and time. The purpose of this table is to explain what each of these categories of inputs is and to give you some examples of these inputs. You need to be able to describe each of these categories of inputs together with some examples of these inputs, and so I suggest that you include this table in your summary books. This slide describes the operations system for a manufacturing business, in this case a brick manufacturer, and the operations system for a service business, in this case a bank. Both operations systems consist of 3 stages, that is, inputs, transformation, and outputs. But these are very different as between the 2 businesses. The inputs for the operations system of a brick manufacturer include raw materials such as the sand and stones that are used to make the bricks, and capital resources such as factories, kilns, trucks, forklifts, and tools. There are many other inputs into the manufacture of bricks, and I'll leave these for you to read by yourselves. At the transformation stage, these inputs are converted into bricks through the use of designs for the bricks, manufacturing processes, and quality control. The outputs of this operation system are the bricks that are then sold to builders. Turning now to the operations system for a bank, the inputs for this operations system include utilities such as the electricity which is necessary to keep the lights on in the bank, and labour such as the tellers, managers, lawyers and accountants who work for the bank. Again, there are many other inputs that are used in the production of financial services by the bank, and I'll leave you to read these inputs for yourselves. At the transformation stage, these inputs are converted into financial services through customer service, the maintenance of the computer systems which include customer information, and the application of banking systems and procedures such as credit checks. The output of this operations system are the financial services that are provided to customers. For example, the borrowing of money by the bank from customers when customers deposit their money with the bank, and the lending of money by the bank to customers when customers want a loan. The video that we watched in class about the Toyota factory provides you with a number of real-life examples of inputs, transformation processes, and outputs. In addition, it demonstrates a number of operations management strategies, which is what we'll be touching on in the second part of this video. We now come to the second part of this video. The learning intention for this second part of the video requires you to be able to explain the relationship between operations management and business objectives. Write this learning intention down in your Cornell notes. Our learning intention refers to the concept of operations management. Operations management is the management of resources and functions within a business, that is the operations system, to transform inputs into goods and services, that is outputs, in a way that minimises the costs of production and maximises the quality of those outputs. Look down the left-hand side of your vocabulary sheets, find the term operations management and write this definition in there. Once you've done that, highlight the words in red, bold, italicised type, and if you're ever required to define or describe operations management, make sure that you include the highlighted words in your definition or description. In this outcome, we'll be looking at 4 types of operations management strategies, sometimes just referred to as operations strategies. The first type of operations management strategy is technology, which includes the use of automated production lines, computer-aided design, computer-aided manufacturing techniques, website development, and e-commerce. The second type of operations management strategy is materials management, which includes forecasting, master production schedule, materials requirement planning, and just-in-time. The third type of operations management strategy is quality management, which includes quality control, quality assurance, and total quality management, or TQM. And the fourth type of operations management strategy is waste minimization, which includes the principles of lean management, Kaizen, and Tim Wood. Technology strategies can both reduce the costs of production and increase the quality of outputs. For example, the use of automated production lines enables a business to replace employees with technology and so save on the expense of wages. The use of automated production lines also increases the quality of output because, unlike human beings, machines can perform repetitive processes for long periods of time without making errors or mistakes. Materials management strategies reduce the costs of production. For example, the use of just-in-time ensures that a business only orders inputs as they are needed for the production process. This reduces the costs of storing those inputs. Waste minimization strategies also reduce the costs of production. They do this by reducing the amount of inputs and outputs that are wasted. For example, a paper manufacturing business might recycle paper offcuts by feeding them back into the paper production process. And finally, quality management strategies increase the quality of outputs. For example, quality control detects defects in goods before they are sold to customers, and quality assurance aims to prevent defects occurring in the first place by using high-quality production processes to produce the relevant output. Much of this outcome will be taken up with looking at these operations management strategies in some detail. Now remember what I keep telling you about business management. It's all about boxes and links. Boxes and links, boxes and links, boxes and links. Operations management and business objectives are two boxes, and our learning intention requires you to be able to link these two boxes. That is, to be able to explain the relationship between operations management and business objectives. That is the purpose of this slide. Effective operations management does four things. First, it uses technology, materials management, and waste minimization strategies to reduce costs. Second, it uses technology, materials management, and waste minimization strategies to increase productivity. Third, it uses technology and quality management strategies to increase the quality of goods and services, that is, to increase the quality of the output that is produced by the production process. And fourthly, effective operations management uses a socially responsible approach to the procurement, that is, the purchase of inputs, the transformation of those inputs into outputs, and the sale of those outputs. This is the box of operations management. Now, we know from outcome 1 that there are a number of business objectives that businesses may have. Most businesses have the business objective of increasing profits, either by reducing their costs or by increasing their revenue. Many businesses also have the business objective of increasing their sales or increasing their market share. In addition, some businesses have the business objective of achieving social objectives, which they do by meeting certain ethical standards or using different kinds of sustainable practices. Finally, many businesses have the business objective of meeting shareholder expectations. This is the box of business objectives, and we now have to examine the link or relationship between these two boxes. That is, we have to look at the link or relationship between operations management on the one hand and business objectives on the other hand. Let's start then by looking at the business objective of increasing profit. By reducing the costs of production and increasing productivity through using technology, materials management, and waste minimisation strategies, effective operations management will result in increased profits, and so will contribute to the achievement of the business objective to increase profit. Another way in which profit can be increased is by increasing revenue. By increasing productivity through the use of technology, materials management, and waste minimisation strategies, effective operations management will enable the business to produce and sell more output, which will result in increased revenue and therefore in increased profits. In this way, effective operations management will again contribute to the achievement of the business objective to increase profit. Another business objective is to increase sales. By increasing the quality of goods and services through using technology and quality management strategies, effective operations management will result in increased sales because customers will want to buy more of the business's goods and services. And so effective operations management will contribute to the achievement of the business objective to increase sales. A similar business objective is to increase market share. Again, by increasing the quality of goods and services through using technology and quality management strategies, effective operations management will result in increased market share because customers will be attracted away from the business's competitors by the higher quality of the business's goods and services. Again, you can see how effective operations management will result in the achievement of the business objective of increasing market share. Yet another business objective is to achieve social objectives through meeting certain ethical standards or using certain kinds of sustainable processes and practices. By being socially responsible in procuring inputs, transforming those inputs into outputs, and selling those outputs, operations management can contribute to the achievement of these social objectives. For example, a business might have the objective of treating its employees in an ethical way. Operations management can contribute to the achievement of this objective by ensuring that the workplace in which the employees do their work in the production process is safe. Similarly, a business might have the objective of minimising its impact on the environment. Operations management can contribute to the achievement of this objective by using technology that reduces the production of harmful byproducts during the production process that would otherwise contaminate the environment. Many customers are also concerned about the impact of their purchasing decisions on society and the environment. By being socially responsible in procuring inputs, transforming those inputs into outputs, and selling those outputs, not only will operations management assist the business to achieve its social objectives, but because this will encourage customers to buy the business's outputs, operations management will also be contributing to the achievement of the business objective of increasing sales. The final business objective is to meet shareholder expectations. A key expectation of shareholders is that the business will make and distribute part of its profits to them by way of dividends, and that as a result of increasing profits, the value of their shares in the business will increase. By reducing costs and increasing the quality of goods and services through using technology, materials management, waste minimisation, and quality management strategies, effective operations management will result in increased profits and so will contribute to the business objective of meeting shareholder expectations. In addition, many shareholders have an interest in the business in which they invest operating in a socially responsible way. Through being socially responsible in procuring inputs, transforming those inputs into outputs, and selling those outputs, operations management will not only be contributing to the achievement of the business's social objectives, but will also be contributing to the achievement of the business objective of meeting shareholder expectations in relation to social responsibility. Ultimately, a business that is operating productively and at low cost, and that is producing high quality goods and services, will be more profitable than its competitors and will be growing its market share. In other words, such a business will become more competitive. The relationship between operations management and business objectives is a very important one, and so I suggest that you include a copy of this diagram in your summary books. And here's another set of boxes and links, this time the link between the boxes of areas of management responsibility, which we looked at in Outcome 1, and operations management. The operations area of management responsibility is responsible for managing the process of creating goods and services produced by the business. That is, it's responsible for managing the operations system. However, in performing this function, the operations area of management responsibility is supported by the other 4 areas of management responsibility. The human resources area of management responsibility recruits employees to work in operations, trains those employees to ensure they have the skills that are necessary for them to work effectively in operations, and motivates those employees, including through maintaining positive workplace relations. The sales and marketing area of management responsibility advertises and sells the output produced by the operations area of management responsibility. The finance area of management responsibility provides the funds that are necessary to cover the expenses of the operations area of management responsibility. For example, the expenses involved in investing in new equipment and in paying for inputs. And finally, the IT support area of management responsibility maintains the technology that is used in the operations system. We've now come to the third and final part of this video. The learning intention for this part of the video requires you to be able to describe the characteristics of operations management within both manufacturing and service businesses. Write this learning intention down in your Cornell notes. You'll recall that manufacturing businesses produce, that is, manufacture, goods that are sold to customers. Goods are tangible things that can be touched. You'll also recall that service businesses perform work for others, that is, they provide services to customers for a fee. Services are intangible things that cannot be touched. Operations management in both manufacturing businesses and service businesses have a number of similarities. The first similarity is that the operations systems in both manufacturing businesses and service businesses utilize technology. For example, car manufacturers have automated production lines which typically use robotics, and businesses which provide legal services typically use computers. The second similarity is that both manufacturing businesses and service businesses have suppliers who provide the inputs that are needed for the operations systems of those businesses. And they also have customers who buy the output that is produced by those operations systems. For example, the suppliers to car manufacturers include the suppliers of wheels, and the customers of car manufacturers are the people who buy the cars from the car manufacturers. On the other hand, suppliers to legal businesses include the suppliers of the electricity that is necessary to keep the lights on in the legal offices. And the customers of legal businesses are the people who buy the legal services that are performed by the legal businesses. The third similarity is that both manufacturing businesses and service businesses have similar business objectives. For example, to make a profit, to increase sales, to increase market share, to achieve social objectives, and to meet shareholder expectations. In both cases, effective operations management, as we've seen, will contribute to the achievement of these business objectives. Let's now look at some differences between operations management in manufacturing businesses and operations management in service businesses. There are 6 main differences which are set out on this slide. The first difference is that the output of manufacturing businesses is goods, which are tangible, that is, they can be touched, whereas the output of service businesses is services, which are intangible, that is, they can't be touched. For example, bakers produce bread and car manufacturers produce cars. Both bread and cars can be touched, that is, they are tangible. On the other hand, barbers perform hair-cutting services and tram operators provide transport services. While you can certainly touch some of the inputs into the production of these services, that is, the barber, the scissors, the barber's chair, or the tram driver and the tram, you cannot touch the service of hair-cutting or the service of transporting. Instead, these are intangible, and they are the result of the skills of the barber or of the tram driver. The second major difference is that in a manufacturing business, production and consumption often occur at separate stages. For example, a baker makes the bread, which is then purchased from the bakery by customers who take the bread home to store and then later on to eat. In such a case, production and consumption don't occur at the same time. Indeed, if you freeze the bread that you buy, there might be several days between the production of the bread and your consumption of the bread. In contrast, in a service business, production and consumption generally occur simultaneously, that is, at the same time. For example, a barber cannot perform hair-cutting services unless the customer is sitting in front of the barber, actually having their hair cut. In such a case, production, that is, the hair cutting, occurs at the same time as consumption, that is, the customer receiving the haircut. The third difference is that while the goods produced by a manufacturing business can be stored, we call those goods inventory, the services performed by a service business cannot be stored. For instance, after cars are manufactured, they are generally stored at either the factory or a dealer. They're not immediately sold to a customer. However, the services provided by tram operators can't be stored. Once you get on the tram, you are being transported. You can't move the consumption of that service to another day. The fourth difference is that the goods produced by a manufacturing business are often standardized, that is, they are homogeneous or the same, and they're often mass-produced, that is, lots of goods are generally made at the same time. However, the services performed by a service business are often customized, that is, they are differentiated or tailored to meet individual customer requirements. For example, when a baker is producing bread, they will typically bake hundreds or perhaps even thousands of loaves at the same time. These loaves are all the same. Perhaps they're wholemeal loaves, perhaps they're sourdough loaves. They all taste the same, and the baker doesn't simply change one of those loaves to include more seeds just because one customer wants more seeds. Moreover, it's very difficult to customize the bread after it has been produced. By then it's too late to add the extra seeds that a customer might want. Conversely, when a barber is providing hair-cutting services, those services will be different as between customers because of factors such as the amount of hair that the customer has, the thickness and length of the customer's hair, the shape of the customer's head, and whether the customer wants a haircut that makes them look like Liam Hemsworth or Ronald Weasley. Fifthly, there is often minimal customer involvement in the production of goods by a manufacturing business, whereas there is often a high degree of customer involvement in the production of services by a service business. For example, a person who wants to buy a car is typically not present at the car factory when the car they buy is being produced. On the other hand, a person who wants to be transported by a tram operator must be present while the transport service is being performed. Such a person has a high degree of involvement in the production of the transport service. Whether they sit or stand, whether they read a book or listen to music, whether they eat or look out the window, will all affect the way in which they experience the transport service that is being provided to them. Sixthly and finally, the production process used by a manufacturing business is often capital intensive. That is, it often makes greater use of inputs of capital resources than of labour inputs. Whereas the production process used by a service business is often labour intensive. That is, it often makes greater use of labour inputs than of inputs of capital resources. For instance, where bread is produced in a factory, then the factory will use automated production lines to mix the dough, large ovens to bake the bread, and machines to pack the baked loaves. In contrast, the process of providing a haircut primarily involves the labour inputs provided by the barber. While the barber uses scissors and blow dryers, it is primarily the efforts and skills of the barber that produce the haircut. Now, our learning intention requires you to be able to describe the characteristics of operations management within both manufacturing businesses and service businesses. That means that you need to be able to describe both the similarities and the differences of operations management within manufacturing businesses and service businesses. Now, wouldn't a question that required you to compare or distinguish operations management within manufacturing businesses and operations management within service businesses be a great SAC or exam question? Please make sure that you include these tables of similarities and differences in your summary books. Our economy is broken up into 4 sectors. These are the primary sector, which is involved in the extraction and use of natural resources in mining and agriculture; the secondary sector, which is involved in manufacturing; the tertiary sector, which is involved in the performance of services; and the quaternary sector, which is involved in intellectual activities such as research. In the primary sector, the inputs come from the natural environment. For example, the sun, rain, and soil. The outputs, typically called commodities, include things such as wheat, cows, and minerals. In the secondary sector, the inputs include capital resources such as machinery. The outputs are goods such as cars. In the tertiary sector, the inputs include labour or human resources such as barbers. The outputs are services such as haircuts. And in the quaternary sector, the inputs include information and knowledge such as scientific knowledge. The outputs are services such as scientific research. You can see from this that the primary and secondary sectors generally create goods. That is, manufacturing businesses operate in the primary and secondary sectors. On the other hand, the tertiary and quaternary sectors generally perform services. That is, service businesses operate in the tertiary and quaternary sectors. This brings us to the end of this video. As a result of watching and taking notes on this video, you should now be able to do 3 things. The first thing that you should be able to do is to describe the key elements of an operation system, namely inputs, processes, which I've referred to as transformation, and outputs. The second thing which you should be able to do is to explain the relationship between operations management and business objectives. And the third thing which you should be able to do is to describe the characteristics of operations management within both manufacturing and service businesses. Remember, you should now read the chapter of the textbook referred to on the first slide in this video. And if you find any additional information from that reading that you think is useful, then supplement your Cornell notes with that additional information. Thank you for your attention.